Oh, I'm so sorry. I think I might have been muted. Um, Anyways, thank you so much for joining today's webinar. I'm Lauren Milovich. I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Simplify Solutions. Today, we're excited to have our client partner, Dan Skinzel, and our senior consultant, Sarah Ramawi, that are going to be discussing and demoing S&OP material planning. And also, when the webinar concludes, a short survey is going to appear. If you guys can please fill that out, we'd really appreciate the feedback. And please feel free to reach out to Dan, Sarah, or myself after the webinar with any questions. Or if during the webinar you would like to ask questions as we're going along, Sarah is here to help answer those. So now I will hand it over to Dan and let him get started.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren, can you see my screen?
I don't see it yet. I see just the normal screen. Let's see.
There we go.
Yep, now I do.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Like Lauren said, my name is Dan Skinzel. I'm a client partner with Simplify. Been with Simplify for about 4 years, and I am working closely with many clients to implement SAP Analytics Cloud solutions. I've been most of my career in corporate finance, 25 plus years, so I'm well astute in the business processes that these applications can be applied to. And also on the call is Sarah Ramawi, who is a supply chain expert here at Simplify, who is here to help answer some questions, and she'll be monitoring the chat as we go along. So before we get started into the content heavily, I just want to take a look at, here's my information, and the information will be on the recording for this that will be on our YouTube channel later, so you'll be able to access this information here for contacting me, etc., with any questions you might have. So with that, just want to do a quick overview of what we'll talk about today. We'll look at a quick intro of Simplify. If you've been on our webinars before, it'll be some similar information. We'll get into the material planning aspect component of S&OP. So we're going to be looking at things from a material planner perspective, look at a couple specific material planning use cases and from a high level, and then just get right into a quick demo of what the possibilities are within SAP Analytics Cloud. So as we get into a quick intro of Simplify, we are based in Chicago, also have office in Montreal, and we are primarily based, or staffed, I should say, with CPAs, MBAs, those with international business experience. So that's what we are first, and we are but people who are very technical in their thinking and work with tools such as Analytics Cloud and use that business knowledge together to implement solutions. We work with, like I said, Analytics Cloud, group reporting, BW HANA, etc. We have as our company goal is 100% referenceable customers. And that is a win-win for everyone, because if our clients are happy, that means the implementations went well, that they are realizing value from their investment. And we as a company get more business from that. So it is a win-win for everyone. So that is our goal. And we achieve 90 to 95% customer satisfaction. So that's something that we are very proud of as an organization. And also, we have really become a go-to partner of SAP for Analytics Cloud applications, one of their key partners there, and we work very closely with SAP on these implementations. So with that, some of what we offer our clients are some of our prepackaged solutions, which we are adding to this list with our supply chain offerings, which we are developing as we speak. But as you can see, we have spent thousands of hours developing planning and analytics related applications. And you can see the list there. I won't go down and read the list, but you can see it across different industries as well. But what we do here is, because of the business knowledge that we have, we can pretty much take that business knowledge and apply applications to that, in a general format. And what these are is, we can take these off the shelf and pretty much implement each of them individually just in a matter of weeks with a very low configuration, meaning kind of off the shelf. But what we commonly do is, we would take, for example, a HR planning application and modify it slightly to your specific needs, connecting to your HR system and so forth, and adjusting it for your specific reports and specific calculations and so forth. So what this does is it allows the clients to realize more value out of their investment sooner than they would with someone coming in just from the ground zero and building something from scratch. So we have had great success with these, and our clients are very happy with these offerings. So that's a little bit about Simplify there. So if you have any questions about any of these specific applications, feel free to reach out to me afterward. I'd be happy to talk with you on that. So with that brief introduction, I wanted to get into some of the material planning aspects of the S&OP process. And for those on the call, I'm assuming you're somewhat familiar with even the term S&OP, or else you probably wouldn't have signed up for the webinar, but this would be the sales and operations planning process. So the piece that we are going to look at is a component of that called material planning. And as we get into that, I wanted to also give you just a quick landscape of how the supply chain process and S&OP kind of fits into the whole framework of SAP Analytics Cloud. So you can kind of see here just a brief overview of the Analytics Cloud platform and how it serves SAP's customers from a BI planning, predictive, and other application perspective. And you can see the core capabilities here that are listed. And this slide really is here primarily for your reference and benefit. I'm not going to really get into it much more, but just to show you kind of that landscape of where Analytics Cloud is and what they serve. But if we think about it from another perspective here, and some of the things it can do, it does offer very rich modeling. You can do a lot of what if scenarios, simulation. Private versioning is something that our clients are very fond of and use extensively. In other words, having that slice or look at the data that is only specific to you and only viewable by you, that can then be maybe published back for the entire organization to see, or whoever's part of that process. So it does that. Even also workflow and task assignment, as well as all the BI that you would do, as you can see on the screen there. And it also has an Excel integration that can be used as well. So it has a lot of functionality and serves a lot of good purposes. So as we look at where the supply chain process fits in the overall long-term objectives, as we look at enterprise-wide planning, it's obvious, as we look at the different parts of the business, and we have sales and marketing and finance, IT, HR, those are all part of the process, but we can also look at those as silos. And one thing that Analytics Cloud does, it helps with more collaborative approach to enterprise planning. And supply chain is a significant part of that. And that is going to, go from demand planning, inventory management, and so forth, and logistics optimization. This really is our second webinar on supply chain. Beth McBreen also did one or actually this summer, that I would highly recommend you check out. It was more of a high level, but it began to show you some of the capabilities of Analytics Cloud in this space. So we're very excited about the opportunities there. Lastly, too, if we look at the FP&A function, like I said, where a lot of us at Simplify have originated from, looking at FP&A and S&OP, Analytics Cloud really helps with the alignment of those functions, how they can really collaborate together in all they do. So again, a lot of these are here for your reference purposes, and you can take a look at those in more detail later. So let's get directly into some of the use cases that we have here. And in doing so, what I want to do is take a quick look. We're not going to cover, all aspects of material planning and all the possibilities and methods that we could use, but we'll focus on a couple of them here. So when you think of demand, you're really looking at it from two different perspectives. You're going to have a demand that's maybe a little more certain. That's what I have in parentheses here, mostly, because nothing is 100% certain. And then, that's going to be more on your manufacturing, maybe a tier 2 and lower. I did spend time in the automotive industry, for example, and on the supply side, and you had specific schedules that you were given from the automotive OEMs, and those are what you capacitized for and built for and ordered materials for. So that was a little more certain. Yes, there's some variability there, but it was much more certain than you would say over on the right side here when you think of retail or CPG. That's going to be 100% end customer facing. You're going to have a lot more potentially uncertainty there. So as we look at those, we can look at a couple of different common planning methods to address each of those scenarios. One being an economic order quantity, and just by its name, it is going to take into account more of the economics of that scenario because of taking advantage of that certainty. And then in addition, looking at just a strict reorder point or quantity to order type scenario. So in each of those, there are going to be some commonalities between them. And, looking at the sales history and demand, they're always going to need that. Are there going to be any vendor constraints? What are our current inventory levels, and what are the KPIs that the organization dictates from a cost standpoint, from a turnover standpoint, et cetera. But as you get into each of the plans individually or each of the methods, you can also see that you're going to have some differentiation where on the EOQ side, we're going to look more at, or in addition to, I should say, what does it cost for us to place an order? What are the constraints from a vendor lead time, and are there any minimum order quantities related to that? Where if you look at the RQ method, as I'll call it, what is our level of uncertainty? What's the degree of uncertainty that we're working with here? And how do we take that into account when we are planning or ordering our inventory? What's the cost of our stockouts or running out of stock and what is that quantity that we really need to consider as our baseline or our stock out quantity. Okay, so as you can see, those are going to cover two pretty different scenarios, and those will definitely lead to different ordering amounts, quantities, and processes. So with that, what I'd like to do is just dive in a little bit into Analytics Cloud just to see how we can put some of these methods into place. I will preface it that as I talked earlier about our prepackaged content, our supply chain content is still currently under development, but what we are seeing is a significant need for from our client base for this type of application. So we wanted to get this out there as soon as possible, just so that others could see the benefits and potential benefits to their organization. So with that, I'm going to switch over to the, blow this up a little bit for you. Okay. Okay, so Sarah, I'm assuming we can see the screen, so unless I hear different, I will keep going. Good. So what we have here in this model is I have a few reports or stories in here, or pages, I should say. And for those who may not be very familiar with Analytics Cloud, let me just give you a brief navigation here. You know, this is, you know, basically a file, but in Analytics Cloud nomenclature, it's called a story. Okay, this happens to be a table that is listed or laid out within this story, and each one of these areas here, these here, the sales demand and EOQ method, these are known as pages. So you can kind of equate it to Excel, where those might be tabs within your Excel workbook. Up here, we have something called a story filter. So this is going to impact the date on each one of these pages as we progress through the story. And then you also have things called page filters, which are only going to impact what's on this specific page. Okay, so that's kind of the basic layout. So when you see something like this going forward, you have a better idea if you're just getting into Analytics Cloud on what some of the navigation is. In addition, obviously, you have some of toolbars and things up here that you can use. So getting into some of the material planning aspects directly here, what we're going to start out with is one of the common things between the two methods that we'll be looking at, you know, the EOQ and R&Q, is sales, or our demand, as we'll call it. Okay, so what we have is as I click on this page filter here, clicking on the page filter, just one second here, let me reload this page. I may have been logged out. Yes, I was. There we go. So as we get here, that's better. I just have a few shoes, for example. So this is, in this case, yes, it's more of a CPG type of scenario, but we are going to apply it to both methods, but just have to have a product here that we can kind of latch onto. So you can see what a page filter is going to do for us is that I have two shoes showing right now, number 10 and number 11. Let's just focus on number 11 for now, so I can take 10 off of there. And we have our information here just for the single shoe. So what we've done here is we have a full year outlook of this product, the demand that's been agreed upon by the organization. And we also, just from a learning standpoint and, you know, just understanding what we have going forward as we plan this year, we've brought in also what our sales history is, our prior year. And it's also, and then we can also look at what a gap is between that history and what we have in the current year. Again, this is just something that's going to help us make sense of what we're looking at. Does what we're planning for make sense in this context? So as I went down to a single one here, I can just simply go back to another. I could also, since I have two different ones, maybe I want to add those together, so I could, drop in some totals off to the side. And again, this is all end user process here. This is nothing that I have special access to do. This is something that any end user would be able to do, so that you can see some of the flexibility there. So once we determine what we're working with here, and if we need to make changes here, we can. We can also just take a quick look. There's all kinds of graphical capabilities, BI capabilities here within the tool as well. And as you can see, this one is set to, again, based on that page filter above, it's showing us the content here for the two different shoes. For example, in week 1, we have 808 and 828, if that is too hard to see, but you can see that's what our total is over here. So again, if we were to remove one of those, it's just going to also show us the information here. And again, this type of thing can be tailored exactly to your needs as far as what you are looking at or what your needs are from an individual organization standpoint. So again, this is here just to show you some examples and capabilities of the tool. So this is the straightforward part, just kind of showing us on a weekly basis what our demand is for any particular product. So right here we have that shoe 11. So let's jump over to our EOQ method. And here we have listed all of the shoes that we have in our inventory at the moment, okay? And as we look at EOQ, this is really going to be a tool that's used to determine the volume and the frequency of orders that are required to satisfy a given level of demand, but at the same time while minimizing our cost per order, hence the name of economic order quantity. This is going to take into account the demand, holding costs, order placement costs, and although not required, you could also do this without taking into consideration any lead times and minimum order quantities, but we have a little bit of a look at both of them here. So what we have is some annualized figures here. So if we look at our demand, I think we had, what was a shoe 11 there, 74,824. So then based on information that we receive from other parts of the organization, for shoe 11, we have vendor lead times that we're aware of that have been given to us. So in this case, for shoe 11, that is going to be 26 days. And we also know that for this particular shoe, that our holding cost to keep a unit in inventory is going to cost us 43 cents as well. And on a per order basis, we know that the setup costs for all those orders are going to have a cost of $4.98. Okay, so these are our parameters that are entered into the process. And when we do that, when we have those parameters, we can then start to look at things a little differently from an economics perspective and arrive at what our optimum order quantities are, what the optimum number of orders are per year, what the time between orders and days should be. And then if we look at it from a constraint standpoint, what should our economic order quantity be to make sure that we don't have those stock out conditions for that particular item. One thing that you do not see on here is that we have built out the calculations behind the scenes, and so the calculations have already been run. And I do actually have on the next couple pages here, I have some of the calculations that you can see, but on here, what we would have is the material planner would then, on shoe 11, for example, they would know that I need, my optimum order quantity is 1,316. So I know from an economic standpoint that when I do place an order, this is going to be the most economically effective amount that I should be ordering. If I look at the constrained one, I should also be, instead of that, ordering 5,300 per order, and that would take into account the lead time, the vendor lead time. So I should be ordering this amount every 26 days, okay? And that would keep me from my stock out situations, as well as take into account that lead time, that constraint from our vendor, and make sure that we don't have those stock out quantities. So there's a lot of variables involved here, and this can be laid out in a manner that is a little more transparent as far as the calculations go. But these, what we end up with, are some of the key factors that would show you what the material planner would use to submit orders and generate orders, okay? So with that, let's move over to the R&Q method here. And the first thing we'll look at in the R&Q method is one of the most important metrics or KPIs related to that method is really our service rate level. And when we talk about service rate level, we're talking about, are we able to fulfill all the demands of our customers or the customer base for that particular material? Are we going to run into any situations where we are short on inventory? And inevitably that there are going to be times when that takes place, and sometimes there's going to be acceptable ranges of those shortages. So do we have a service level of 100%, which means in that particular week, as we look at our inventory on hand, the demand or shipments that we have to make, maybe we have some in-transit inventory coming in from purchases or other incoming orders, that tells us what we have available. So are we able to satisfy that demand in this particular week? In that case, we would have what we would call 100% service level attainment. However, there are going to be some weeks, if I scroll down here, I think I may have some, maybe not in this particular product. Let me find one here. If we look at number 11, oops. One more here. Here we go. So here we can look at, in our case here, and this is product 14, you can see our incoming orders of 783. And let me just jump back over to the economic order quantity. If I go to number 14, you see we just took into account here what the optimum order quantity is from this method and used it over here. So we just used that 783, and we're also looking at a little over 7 days that we should have in between orders. So as we look at this, you can see most of these are weekly. We have a skip in this week because, of for various reasons, we just didn't need any that week. But you can see these orders have been placed or should be placed here based on those parameters. So these orders can be populated automatically within this process. and then adjustments can be made where needed. So we can look at areas like this where, you know, we have 72, 61% of service level attainment. Now, if we have a 95% internal KPI for service level attainment, this is obviously not a good thing. So this is something that we need to address. And we can take a look at that graphically too, because that's going to be much easier to pinpoint where those shortages are, or those lower levels of attainment are. And we'll be able to pinpoint that quickly and make adjustments as we get out into these out periods. And for example, if we need to increase this to, I'll just say 1,300 here, 1,200 here. Well, let's just continue with these here. Okay, and once we do that, we can, you know, recalculate our service rates and availability here. So I can just do that quickly here with what we call a data action. This is going to run some calculations in the background and present us with a new result. And it'll run pretty quickly, and we'll see if that, based on all the underlying parameters, if that meets our goals. Instead of looking at the data, we'll just jump down. So we've corrected most of that. We have one week here that's at 72%. So we could still come back and make that adjustment if we needed to. And you can see once I ran that data action, everything turns yellow that has been changed. So you can see all of these items were updated here. So I just missed one up here, but that's okay. Just for example's sake, you can see how that would work. So again, it's a very simplistic example, but it does show you the capabilities, and also looking at it from a material planner's standpoint, as this would be one of the most important KPIs that they would be working with, because if the orders are not getting fulfilled because of a shortage of supply or inventory, the material planner is usually the one that's going to catch the heat for that. So that's why this is an important piece. So once we arrive at the service rate levels that we need, this is some of the data that we're going to end up looking at here. And I'll get to that shoe 14, I think we were on. Let's see, that is not the one I wanted to look at though. Bear with me a moment here. Nope, we'll stick with 14. But what we have here, I mean, the R&Q method is a very mathematically driven process here. We're taking a lot of things into consideration as we try to determine what we are determining is our optimum order quantities in this process. So in this particular example, as we looked at shoe 14, we have a demand here, and we're looking at annualized figures. A demand here of the 36,000. We have a vendor lead time, and what we need to do here, and just to give you an idea of what's happening behind the scenes here, I did just drop in this formula so that you could kind of see what's happening behind the scenes, calculating the holding costs, which take into account also the safety stock and cycle stock, plus our order costs and any related back order costs. So all of this is happening behind the scenes to get us to this point. So we're looking at the mean of the demand here, and we're also looking at the standard deviation of those to arrive at what we call a measure of uncertainty, because what we really want to understand is, with these parameters, what is the uncertainty that we're dealing with here? In this case, as we look at the 13,020 units, as we would call it, our measure of uncertainty, we can look at that as a kind of a percentage of the total demand, and this is about a 3.5% measure of uncertainty when you compare these two figures. Again, this is going to vary from organization to organization, but is this a acceptable level of uncertainty? So again, this is just presented in a tabular data output format. We would also pull this together in a more graphical BI interface type process that may be easier to decipher, but the whole point here is just to be able to show you the different calculations and how Analytics Cloud can take this information and perform these complex calculations to arrive at these key figures for the organization as they're determining what the cost or the level of materials to order. In addition to the measure of uncertainty, we're also going to look at from an annual cost of a shortage or a stock out, as we would call it. So we need to take into account similar things such as our back order costs, what our expected stock out quantity is per year, etc. These are all things that need to be considered here in this point. And the reason why we have zeros here is because this particular example, and I think most of them were like this, but these were all corrected already to show that we had already accounted for our safety or service rate levels, so that we did not have any stock outs. And so those are zero at this point. But you can see through these calculations, we do end up with a safety stock, which would be this portion of our calculation here, which looks at our orders less our demand and lead time. So it's also going to help us determine what the number of deliveries we should have for the year. And then now that we have our safety stock quantity, we also know what our reorder point is and what our quantities to order. So we have a lot of information to go on here. And again, this is going to be just information that is used by the planner to pull together their material orders for any given period. So as we were to look at these areas here, we would see, a material planner would use this kind of as a living, breathing document here, and not just looking at it, on a monthly or quarterly basis. This would be something that would be looked at on a daily basis as data is refreshed and updated with incoming orders, maybe transfers and so forth, or changes in demand. And that's going to be the kind of the daily life of the material planner. So as we look at this and use this and think of this in conjunction of the overall S&OP process, this is, like I mentioned earlier, going to be kind of a small piece of it, but a necessary piece of it. And the point is to show the capabilities of Analytics Cloud and how it can handle these calculations. I know a lot of organizations are viewing Analytics Cloud as a financial BI tool or planning and forecasting tool from a financial perspective, but it can go a lot further than that. And we are finding that it is a great tool to use inside of that S&OP process. And again, I would encourage you to go back, if you have not seen it already, to go to our YouTube channel at Simplify Solutions and view Beth McBreen's basic inventory planning overview in Analytics Cloud. So this is one offshoot of that, and we will be delivering more of these in the future with more refined content as well. So with that, I just wanted to open it up for any questions that we might have. I know, Sarah, did we have anything to go over? Take a peek here. No questions? Okay. All right, well, this is recorded, so this video will be made available on our YouTube channel at a later point. Again, this is a pretty high level, so if we wanted to have any discussions, get into more details about your specific situations, be happy to do that. Again, I can put the, I can put the information on the screen here. Just one second. Get that off the screen. And go from there. There we go. Whoops. So there's the contact information there, but we'll also have this video on our website. And so feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or need to discuss anything further. So with that, I thank you for your time and wish you a good rest of your day. Thanks for joining.